Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. You are watching the Positive Vibes podcast. I am your host, Kelly Fitzgerald. My guest today, Dorron Blumberg, has an interesting background. For a lot of my current students seem to be they were in the realm of being a young athlete from, high school, junior college, that kind of thing. And that's kind of who you work with. So we're going to start there. Welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. We were talking a little bit before the show about how many young men are now stepping forward and saying, "Hey, you know what? I know all about this female, power thing that we've had, and they want balance in their life, the work-life balance thing. We want that too." And I think that's
Absolutely.
that's wonderful. So, how do you work with the athletes that you work with?
Well, typically, the biggest thing that I find with the athletes is they don't have a game plan when it comes to their mindset. So, what I mean by that is when they come in, they're doing everything right from a physical standpoint and from training themselves to prepare for their sport. But mentally, they're not prepared when things don't go right, how to have a plan in place for that. So I teach them mindset tools and life lessons from my experience as being a former athlete of how to get from where they are right now to ultimately where they want to be.
Right. And I don't know what area you're working in specifically, but I know from my past experience working with young people, you get so often, I would find athletes who were so physically gifted and just had everything going for them, but their home life was such that they didn't have the self-confidence, they didn't really have the belief that they could do anything to break out of that situation. Do you find that? Do you work with those kids as well?
Yeah, every situation's different. A lot of kids do have great support from their coaches and parents. I did have a situation where I had a wrestling coach, what was the coach of the wrestler, and they were having issues. And what was happening is the wrestler that I'm coaching was shutting down when
Mhm.
things got tough, and his dad came from a background that was a little abusive in terms of his sport. Like his dad, the coach's dad, even left him at a tournament one time, and in Phoenix, and we live in Tucson, and he didn't drive him home because he was so upset with his performance. So things like that, when it happens to coach's son, he has that trauma that he's bringing with him, and then trying to implement that same type of mindset to his son, and that doesn't always work well because kids are a lot more intelligent now and they're a lot more witty. And in addition to that, their emotional intelligence is very different to what we had as I had as an athlete. So I got them actually to communicate very, very, very well, and they're doing amazing now. And they came up with a safe word that they can use when the situation gets tough so they can communicate with each other. And then before the match, I had them talk not as coach and son, but more just talk and keep the communication light. So there was no extra pressure put on the match. So
Right.
he's doing phenomenal now. He actually just won a huge tournament, and I'm seeing him again tomorrow to kind of get a recap of where he's at and how his if his mentality's still super high. So really proud of that situation and being able to help both the coach and both the athlete at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's something that you're instilling in both of them that they can take forward then in the rest of their life. So often people go into an athletic mindset when they are young, and I know a lot of people that fit that, and they just they don't know how to translate what they have learned
Correct.
and into, you know, the rest of their life. So what would you, I have a couple of students now that are in my mind right now when I'm mentioning this, what would you tell them? How do you take those lessons that you learn? And I know there's a lot of discipline that goes into it. There's a lot of dedication that goes into, and move that forward into the rest of your life.
Well, definitely, I think being an athlete is a very special characteristic to have because you do form things of discipline in your life. Like you're pretty disciplined for the most part with your nutrition, you're pretty disciplined with, you know, your sleep schedule, you're pretty disciplined with your workout habits. And if they've lost those habits, they can always reconnect with that really quickly. So, as a former athlete, I find that when I am doing all the things that I teach, like going to sleep on time, waking up the same time every day, um, you know, optimizing my nutrition, listening to podcasts, reading books, getting my mind right by doing my own visualization exercises and affirmations, and using all these tools to my advantage, it definitely sets your day up for success. So it's important to kind of have a plan in place for yourself and write down your own goals. Like I have a you know, a calendar
Mhm.
book where I write down my own goals every day and just focus on the small things, focus on small wins, and then it will lead to a bigger change.
That's really important to focus on the small wins. Um, that's one of the things that tends to come up over and over again in people that I work with is you can't overlook the small wins. You know, you may have that big goal over there, but you have to congratulate yourself. You have to celebrate those small wins along the way, or you kind of lose your focus, I think.
Absolutely. It's so important to stay focused on the things that you can control and not put too much focus on the things you can't control and just stick to the plan, stick to the process, and
Right,
you'll achieve great things. And on top of that, you got to have fun with what you're doing. You got to put your passion. If you're super passionate about what you're doing, nobody can ever take that away from you. Nobody
right,
can ever take your personality away from you. And if you have that built inside of you, you already have an advantage because when people see that you care and it's more about the money and you're putting in more time into them, you're putting more effort, whatever the business is, and you're showing from your heart that I'm here for you. Like, this is
right,
what I want to do. I care about you. I don't care all about the money because if it's all about the money, then people will pick that up quickly. When they see that you're willing to go above and beyond for them, that's where you can grow your business and do really, really well and having really good communication with people, like being on top of them when they call you or answer you, trying to get back to them or letting them know, hey, I'm busy right now, can't talk. I'll call you back at another time.
right.
So that's also really big to have that communication with your clients.
Yeah, I think the whole giving back thing that you just kind of implied with not being all about the money, it's you kind of have to go above and beyond when you're working with other people, especially younger people. We want to set that, you know, we want to set that example that you want these people moving forward to also go above and beyond when it's required. And it doesn't mean we need to have people over giving, but at the same time, we need to make sure that they realize it's we care about them. You know, you have to care.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's sort of a leadership example. That's what we want to have them aspire to, I think is very important. Um, I'm sure you've seen athletes that you've worked with go on into other areas of their life and maybe become a leader, become sort of a teacher that works with other people. I've had a couple of my students run for office because they saw things that they felt like they could make a positive, impact on.
It's amazing. Wow.
That to me makes it more worthwhile than the money that you're paid. And I'm sure you probably feel that as well. It's more making a difference in the world.
Absolutely. I mean, because as you know, as a coach, when you're teaching people skills that they are transformative in nature, it gives them the ability to not only use it for what they're going through right now, but they can always go back into different lessons or concepts that you teach them and say, "Hey, I remember when, you know, Kelly taught me that or Dorron taught me that." And I'm going to use that again to get through what I'm going through right now, whether it be a relationship, whether it be something you're doing in business, whether it be, a sport or activity you're looking to compete in, past your sport that you did as a kid. So it's always great to, you know, go back and retool yourself with these different concepts that you can use over and over and over again to build up your confidence.
What do you tell people who can't make that connection with, okay, I learned this about this, and now a similar thing's happening over here, and they can't bring that forward? What is it we can do to help people maybe figure out how to use that same lesson over here? Sometimes I think, especially young people, but everyone, we get too laser focused on this lesson goes with this situation and don't really bring it forward.
Well, I would say that you definitely everything resonates different with people. I'll give you a perfect example. I used to train this kid and I was a personal trainer for 20 years too. So I used to train this kid, did not like coming to the gym, didn't listen to a word I said about nutrition, anything like that. And recently I saw him on Facebook and he was like super in shape, super ripped, fit. And I reached out to him and I go, "What changed? What happened in your life? I used to get on you all the time about eating better and working out and enjoying it and building your confidence and all these positive things. And you know, all you can do sometimes is just plant seeds,
Yeah,
plant seeds. And sometimes they're not ready to grow, right?
true. That is
But
very
for this this individual, what happened to him, it was a breakup. It was
ah,
adversity that caused him to shift and make the change in his life. And it's all about programming the subconscious mind. So as long as you're saying, okay, here's this thing you can use, maybe you're not ready for it, maybe you're not listening, you kind of got a block or a wall up, but know that it's there. And one day when you're ready, you've heard it over and over and over time, you'll be able to connect that idea with this idea.
yeah, that's what we hope for.
Right, exactly.
It's sometimes you have an individual that you've planted seeds and you planted seeds and you planted seeds and one day, years in the future, you're hoping that that they germinate, but you still have to keep going too. And I think that's something, working with younger people, you have to realize that they're not all ready at the same time. And you
Yeah, and I mean, sorry to
no,
cut
that's
you off,
okay.
but even with this, right? Like the cell phones.
Hmm.
For the past 5 years, I have left my cell phone. Either this is my work office. I have my own office now, but I've either left it in the kitchen before I go to bed or in my office. So you have to disconnect from
Yeah,
social media. You have to disconnect from texting because that will program your mind and it builds up anxiety, depression,
yeah,
right? Unrealistic expectations. You might be watching videos on social media and you'll be like, wow, that person makes this, or that person has this lifestyle, or look how happy they are. but they're not really telling you the truth about what they're actually going through
Right.
in
Yeah.
life or what
Right.
their actual situation is. And a lot of times we'll try and compare ourselves to other people and say, that's what I want in my life. But ultimately, what you need to understand is that even having all of this stuff, all these physical things in your life, if you don't live by purpose, you're never going to be happy. You're never going to fulfill your heart's desire.
Right.
And that's what makes life special is when you're living on purpose, you're able to do so much for
Mhm.
people and you're not even thinking about the result. You're enjoying the process and being able to help people above and beyond.
That's something that I've mentioned many, many times on different YouTube videos on my channel is you have to stop the comparison between other people. And it's really, I did a whole video on just be yourself. And sometimes younger people, especially if they've come through adversity in their childhood,
Mm.
they have trouble figuring out who they are when they get out of that situation, or even how do they get out of that situation. And that's one of the things that I think that's part of social media's downfall. And it can also be
Right,
a good thing as well, depending on what your feed looks like. I've had a young person recently, now she's off at college now. And we didn't think we'd get her through high school. You know, it was just, there was,
right,
and it just, she had the hardest time trying to figure out who she was. She was kind of athletic, but she didn't really fit in there. She liked music, but she really wasn't a band kid. She had so many different interests that she couldn't figure out where she fit. You've probably run across people like that too, at least once or twice. I think we've all run across them or been that kid. And it's really tough for them when they're looking at social media and they're thinking, well, that's something I have an interest in. I should do what that person's doing. And it doesn't work because you're not that person. And they go through many different things before they finally find the thing that clicks, but they have to find the thing that clicks. How do you help people find that? Have you had an athlete that really didn't want to be an athlete, for an example?
well, not just athletes, but I have worked with young men and women before that were looking for their career and looking to
Mhm.
make a difference in their life and change what they're doing, or they were transitioning in a relationship or starting a new relationship. And the biggest thing I tell them is to just write down the pros and cons of every situation
Mhm.
that you're looking at. Another great suggestion is to go shadow somebody.
Yeah.
Go shadow if you're thinking of getting into a special career, let's say like I don't know, like a firefighter or something like that. As an example, go to the station, your nearest station, and say, "Hey, could I come for a day and shadow you guys and see what it's like to actually work in this space for a day?" And I bet you they'll be excited to have you there and to show you because not a lot of people do that. And I think if you do that, then you're going to kind of be able to either cross it out as something that you want to do, or you'll be able to put a check mark and say, wow, I really love that. This looks like a great um, situation for me.
Yeah, I think a big component of that is, are you enjoying it?
Right.
I have talked 3 different people out of a career in real estate. I did real estate for years, and I would have high school kids want to come and see what it was like, and all 3 of them went, "Nope, not for me." So, but
Yeah.
that's as important as finding out, what is for you. If it isn't fun, if you can't get excited about shadowing somebody and what they're doing, it's not for you. Don't try to force it. And I think so.
Exactly. And plus, you're saving a lot of time, you're saving
Yep,
a lot of money with education because I've heard time and time again somebody goes to school for one thing and they end up doing something else, right?
yep, yep.
So, I mean, like, even looking at things in life that are huge needs right now, like, and understanding, like, what type of person you are. Are you an analytical person? Are you an artsy person? Like maybe if you're analytical, the world needs a lot of accountants now. So that's a huge avenue to go down and a huge need and engineers and people of that aspect. Or if you're an artsy person, maybe you'll like marketing or, event planning or working with people and being able to express your creativity. So it's all about finding like what fits your mold the best and seeing what different career paths you can go down to fulfill your purpose.
Yeah. What do you do when you run across a young person who has been told their entire lives by a family that they were going to do one particular thing? Um, and that's not who they are at all. I have a relative who the entire life, her entire life, you're going to be an attorney, you're going to be an attorney, you're going to be an attorney. She's an artist. She's not an attorney. And that was a whole big dramatic thing. Is there a way that we can maybe make that a little bit easier? I mean, on her family, it was just dead set. This is the only thing we're going to accept. Well, that puts a lot of pressure on her. And she
Right,
wants to,
and
you
that's a
know,
huge career and a lot of funding for attorney and schooling and all that stuff. But definitely when you have family members involved, they're a huge influence on your life. And most of the time you want to do stuff to make them happy
right,
and you
right,
neglect where your happiness is. But as long as you communicate with them that over and over again, the same way they're communicating to you that they want you to do this, right? So it's like when you're a child, you used to say, why, why, why?
yeah,
So if you over communicate to them that your passion is doing this and I love doing this and this is my plan and this is what I intend to do with this schooling or this passion that I have of mine, they're going to want to support you. They're going to want to be there for you and be like, you know what? I never looked at things that way because we are conditioned to live life a certain way, right? Like even my parents, my mom is a nurse and she was like, you'd be a great surgeon. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I will. I love working with people. I don't mind blood. I don't mind cutting things open and it doesn't phase me. So I went to school, right? I went back to school. I was a personal trainer at that time and I took trigonometry and I had about 50 personal training clients plus trying to go to school.
yeah.
And I remember I studied every night. I was very disciplined, had that old athlete mindset. Thought I did really well. Went into the midterm, took the midterm, handed my paper to the teacher, and I said, "Thank you for the class, but you'll never see me again. I don't think I passed this test." And I was like, "This isn't for me." Like,
Right.
I love like not dealing with people that are sick or people that need certain things. I figured out then that I'm like, what am I doing? I'm in the right career of helping people.
Right.
And obviously I don't do that anymore, but I do coaching and I also have a marketing business. But um, life can be crazy. It could take you so many different ways,
Yep.
but as long as you have an open spirit, you're a very spiritual lady. If as long as you have an open spirit and you're asking, how can I fulfill my heart's desire every day? And if that same answer keeps coming to you over and over and over again, find a way to make that a career for yourself. So that way you can bring in income and at the same time you can grow that career.
Yeah.
Whether it's working for somebody at first or starting your new business, always have a security blanket so that way you could progress to that thing you ultimately want to do. And if you see that vision of ultimately what you want to do while you're working somewhere, you're going to have a better attitude at the place that you're working
Yeah.
because you know where you're heading.
Yeah. Absolutely. What do you do when someone comes to you and says, I don't even know. I'm very frustrated. I'm very angry. I'm doing all the right things and it's just not working. I had someone come to me with that last night, so I would like to know what advice you would give. Because sometimes, I tell people the universe is going to test you. Do you really want to grow this? Is this really where your heart is? Is this really your goal? And things don't go smoothly. And I think sometimes people think, well, I've made up my mind. It's a done deal now. And they don't realize there's a lot of work that you have to do to make your goals, to meet your goals.
Yeah, so I'll share a story with you, kind of a little a bit off topic, but I'll get to answer that question. So back in 2008, I got involved with a business partner who was going through a divorce. And what that did, it ended up bringing us both down. It dragged us
Hmm.
both down. I ended up homeless for about 2 weeks, walking into hotels, acting like I was staying there and getting a free breakfast. So my point to that story is that I didn't have a cell phone. The 2008 we had those old Nokia
Yep.
phones.
Yep.
I think the phones with the digits on it started coming
Hmm.
out. So I would go to the beach. I was in Naples, Florida. I'd go to the beach and I would just sit there. I wasn't doing drugs. I wasn't drinking. I was completely sober, in a good place mentally, but I just wasn't making money
Right.
and being able to live according to my standards. So I was sitting there on the beach and broke, and I'm like, well, I'm not broke mentally. I'm broke in the physical world and monetarily, but I've had a lot of time to think about my purpose.
Yep.
And I think getting yourself away from everything, going to a quiet place, and just thinking without any noise is a great way to start, because it allows you to think, okay, I'm here right now. I'm not sure what I want to do or who I want to be, but what do I enjoy? Like, do I enjoy being around people? Do I enjoy projects? Do I enjoy, um, writing? Do I enjoy reading? Do I enjoy being on front of a computer all day? What are the things that really excite me when I get up in the morning and give me purpose? And I think when you think about that, sometimes you can't really give someone that answer, but you could give the suggestion like, do this exercise, go all week, sit somewhere outside, whether it's a park or if you're near a beach or mountains, and just think about what you enjoy doing. And next time when I see you, we'll talk about those things and we'll take small steps.
Yeah, I think breaking it up in small steps is
Right.
key for a lot of people. But this particular person um, knows what he wants to do, knows absolutely where he wants to end up. And he follows this advice and he gets this far, and he follows this advice and that doesn't work. And when you hit up a bunch of walls that just aren't getting there, I told him, change your perspective, look at things a different way. Maybe your approach is off. Maybe, you need to back up and watch a comedy. Maybe you need to forget about it completely for a little
Right.
while. So I think people get stuck in, no, this is the way it has to be, this is the way it has to go. And when you get that closed-minded, all you're seeing is what's, right here that you can't get through. And you're not realizing if you back up 3 feet and go to your right, you're gonna get around that wall. Um, that's
Absolutely. That's a good way to put it too. Yeah. So definitely having a growth mindset in life is huge. It's everything, because if you have a fixed mindset and you're like, okay, I'm only doing it this way, then you're just going to be beating your head up against a wall.
yeah,
And what the athletes that I work with right now, I totally changed their perception. It's one of your mind muscles. And I teach them, it's a famous quote you just mentioned by Wayne Dyer. It says, change the way you look at things,
yep,
and the things you look at change.
yep,
So when you change your perception totally on life, that's huge, because now you're thinking, okay, what else could I do? How can I approach this situation? I even had a friend, He was in marketing, and he used to buy a bunch of shoes, right? And he bought a bunch of shoes, and then he put the shoe in the mail to the business that he wanted to talk to, and they would get the shoe, and they'd pull out the card, and the card would say, "Now that I got my foot in the door, I'd love to set up a meeting with you." So little creative things like that
Yep.
could capture people's attention.
Yeah, I did something similar when my first book came out because it was talking about taking out the trash. It was on
Right.
the road to enlightenment, don't forget to take out the trash. And I had these little plastic trash cans
Oh,
that
that's
I
so
would
cute.
send people. I would fill them up with, I would really like to be on your show or be a guest. And those things really do catch people's attention, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So little tricks.
Yeah, and it was fun. It
Right.
was a fun thing to do. So I love that. What do you do? How do you teach young people to not quit when they get stuck, when they have a loss or things don't go? How do they reach inside and pull out that strength that says, I am going to do this? It's just one loss. It's just one whatever.
Definitely positive affirmations, doing some visualization, breathing exercises, resetting your game plan. Sometimes you just have to walk away from it for some time and kind of reset. So just depends on how much time you need to get yourself back in the game.
Yeah, because I know, you hear stories about people who, lose a game or a big game or whatever it is, and they just spiral downward and just never come back. And I always think that's so sad because you had something to get to the point where you got. Why would you throw it all away on just you know, one loss?
Right. And another point I like to make is every loss or every time you fail, there's a learning lesson in there. So what I do is I teach them to focus on the process, not the outcome. So when you focus on the process, like your technical, tactical, strategy, mental approach, physical approach, also, nutritional. So when you focus on all those things, and you're focusing on the small details, you're able to grow from that lesson that you learned and then write it down because the pen never forgets. So when you write it down and you say, okay, this is what I learned from that experience, now you have a actionable item that you could take with you into practice or into your next game that you can continue to work on and improve. And plus, you can measure it. So I have a measure there, results from like a 0 to 5, 0 being nothing, 5 being amazing, or 1 to 10, whatever you prefer. And then they're able to keep track of their performance. And I use a performance journal. So that's what I call it. So that really helps them psychologically seeing it and being able to make a plan of what they need to work on to get better.
That I like that you do that. I'm always telling people to journal things.
Right.
But even a goals journal or a dream journal that you want where I'm here right now. I want to be there. Here are the steps I'm going to take to get to that point. Those have proven very helpful to people that I've worked with. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, all of us want instant gratification, but it's the journey that makes it special. It's the journey of getting to ultimately where you want to be in your life that's fun. And I think a lot of us put our expectations and our results based on having something at the end, right? Whether that's a house, whether that's a person that we're gonna, call our husband or wife, whether that's a new car, shiny new car, and all these things are great, but at the end of the day, after having it for like a week or two, you forget about it. You're like, okay, I have all these things. Now what? What's next? And I think if you're not continually working on your internal self to see how you can help people and benefit their life, and make people better, you'll never fulfill your passion.
Yeah,
You never fulfill, like you talked about that artist. You know, she'll sell one painting and she'll get super excited, but it's not just the painting you're selling. She's selling her soul.
yeah,
This is
yes,
everything
yeah,
she put into this, and now she's excited and happy to do another painting
right,
because again, you're able to display your emotions, you're able to display your psyche and the way you think. And when somebody falls in love with that and hangs it up on their wall, you're like, wow, this actually means something to somebody,
right.
and it means more to me because I'm able to provide this to somebody and they really resonate with it. And that makes me feel amazing. And there's no monetary value that could replace that in your life ever.
Absolutely not.
Plus, it makes her parents proud.
Yeah, 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 and
You
that
did
that
it. You know, you did it.
but that's so important, and I think a lot of people overlook that. They get so focused on the house, the car, the whatever, and I know a lot of wealthy people who are miserable, and it's because they've attained all of this,
Right.
but they haven't attained themselves. And
Exactly.
I really think in my life, I've had some horrible situations, but what has always gotten me through it is if I could find one person to help, if I could make one person's day better, then
Right.
I felt better. And I think that's something that people just overlook. They get so focused on stuff. And at the end of the day, it's not what's really important. It's not what's really going to make you happy.
Yeah. And especially when you find something that's bigger than you.
Yeah,
Like, for example, just a silly thing. You even going to the grocery store and asking somebody, "Hey, how's your day going?"
right.
And they'll step back like, "Whoa, what?
Yeah,
I'm a person. You're asking me how my day is? Yeah, how's your day been? You having a good day? Is it gone pretty well for you?" And then they're like, "Whoa, like people don't really ask me that, you know?" Like
right.
they nonchalantly be like, "Hey, what's up? How's it going?" Like they won't be like trying to start a conversation with you, you know? So just doing that will make somebody feel good, and then next time you see them, you might remember their name. "Hey, Tommy. Hey, man, how's it going? How's your day been? How's your family? How's everything?" Now you build them and you get to know more and more and more, and people remember you for that.
They do. They absolutely do. That's we have a thing around here where, well, I live in the middle of nowhere, and
Yeah.
Arizona is a free range state, and cows. So
Yep.
yeah, so we had a thing the other day where cows are just like everywhere, and everyone is really upset about it. And I'm going, that one's Ralph, that one's George, that one.
Yeah.
I just made a game of naming cows.
Right. That's
And
amazing.
it just the neighbor was just, I can't believe you've named the cow. But by the time the people who owned the cows got there and everybody left, one of two things happened. My immediate neighbor and myself, we were laughing, by George.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other people were very upset because they had gone through a fence and had caused a lot of damage. And it's what you focus on. It's really what you
Exactly.
focus on. And
Exactly.
nothing will make you feel better quicker than getting someone to laugh with you or changing someone's day. It's pretty obvious to most people. You walk into a coffee shop and you can tell who's having a good day and who's not having a good day.
Right.
And
Instantly. Yeah.
if you can just say, I hope your day gets better. It doesn't look like you're happy right now. What can I do? It makes you feel better and it makes them feel better. And I think that's really what it's all about anyway.
Yeah, because connection is huge. I mean, when you're able to connect with people and you live in a small town, and I'm kind of in a small town here, not far from you in Tucson. So when you're able to connect with people and show them that you care, they'll say, like, wow, like nobody's ever thought about me like that. Everybody wants, something from you. They want to take something from you.
Yeah.
And when you're willing to give and say, here, you know, this is something that I can do for you to add value. Guess what that's going to do? It's going to have them talk to their friends
Yeah,
and people that they know, business associates, about you, like, wow, like, I didn't realize, like, Duran is a really good guy, or like, Kelly, she did this for me, and like, you should meet her, you know? Like, there's an introduction right there.
right, right.
I had one guy, his name's Steve over here in Arizona, and he's like, "Hey, come, I want you to come to this breakfast that we're having. It's a networking group, and I'm going to talk to people on your behalf." So we go there, and he stands up, he goes, "I'm going to use," because you get the elevator pitch.
Mm.
So he goes, "I'm going to use my 30 seconds here to talk about Duran. And I just want to tell you, Duran is the nicest human being I've ever met in Tucson. And I don't know how he does it, but he can do anything. I'll send him an email, and then right away he sends me an email back, or a text, or a phone call. And that means a lot. Like, it's not for my ego, but it's just telling you that I'm always looking out for people, and I'm not always going after their money. I'm trying to help them and like be there for them. Like, I even took them to the gym, and as being a former trainer, I gave them a little routine to do. Like, I don't mind doing stuff like that to people because they appreciate you and they show their compassion
Right,
and care. But if I did that for somebody and they're like, well, they had a poor attitude about it, well, I'll be like, well, I'm not hanging out with you. Or if I have friends that I've had to let go. I'm sure you've been in
yeah,
situations like this where you've had to let go of people in your life because they drink and smoke and party, and they want you to come out late at night, or they give you a hard time if you're going on a diet. And I'm like, no, man, I want my friends to empower me. I want
right,
people around me that I'm
right.
going to call. I could celebrate small wins with them, and like, I have Marcus as a coach. So, just telling him yesterday that I got a new coaching client. He's like, "Hell yeah," like, awesome. Like, that as a coach, it means a lot, and having somebody excited for you, that's why we're coaches. It's
Right.
like, man, I'm awesome. I had a kid, he won his whole soccer tournament this weekend, 10 years old.
Yay.
And now his dad's like, "Man, I need to introduce you to this person. I need you to introduce you to this person." And they're in Florida. So it's
Well,
like this, like virtual. So when you make an impact on somebody, it what I would say for your students they need to know is that it grows, it spreads, right? Like,
yeah,
you're planting little seeds in people's minds about who you are.
yeah,
And I think, like, again, we want a response, like, right away, like, "Okay, hire me." No, like, let's build a relationship over
right.
time. Like, "Hey, what are you doing on Wednesday? Let's meet for coffee. I'd love to get to know you." Like, do a one-to-one with somebody, like, get to know them, take time. I'd be like, "I really want to learn about your business," like you're doing for me, and asking questions. And I think when you take time out of our busy schedules to do that, it makes you feel good because you're building more relationships with people, and you see if you want to continue to build that relationship with somebody, or if they're not a right fit for you and where you're heading in your life.
Yeah, and I think, at least for me, when I work with other people, I can see like the ripples of, I call it ripples of kindness going out into the world,
Right.
because everyone that you empower can really empower other people. And it just goes on and it goes on and it goes on. And really, I think that's what we should all be focusing on right now as human beings. There's enough ick in the world. We need to be putting out some positive stuff. The media has a tendency of focusing on what is negative, and
Oh
people
yeah.
are so divided and people are so angry, and we need to counteract that, I think, through coaching and just through working with people and just through talking with people and saying,
Yeah, I mean, I even had a friend that ended up in the hospital because he watches Fox News all day. So he had a panic attack in his 60s. So negative energy wastes space, which is the news. Sometimes there's maybe 5%, 10% of the time it's positive.
right.
Most of the time it's about the weather if it's sunny outside.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, when you just program your mind differently, like, I turned off like I had a subscription to Hulu Live, and I'm like, all right, I'm turning it off. I'm like, even sports today are
Yeah,
controversial.
yeah,
And I'm like, I'm just turning it off. And I'm like, I'm just gonna read at night, or spend time with my wife, or spend time with 9 animals, spend time with the animals. Like
yeah,
put more energy into that, which is, your circle of influence,
yeah,
than trying to control what's going out there in the world and just being nicer to each other, or texting a neighbor, hey, what you up to? You wanna hang out, or meet me outside and we'll chat, something like that, where we don't always connect with our neighbors because we're just so busy with our own lives.
yeah. Well, yeah, and it's my grandmother used to say, it's a sad state of affairs that people don't,
Yeah,
sit on their front porches and wave at neighbors
right.
anymore. But I think we have lost a lot as human beings by not we've lost a lot of connection. And I do think it's time to rebuild that. Even out here in the hinterland where I am, I still have neighbors. They may be over there, but
Yeah,
you still have people that out here we kind of hold little neighborhood meetings at either the mailboxes out on the highway or at the dump on Saturday mornings. And even that, there is a lot of, I got to turn off the news, how are you doing? That
right.
is starting to happen, that I've seen starting to happen. And it's very encouraging to me because that
Yeah,
was not always the way.
even me getting an office here, there's, like you're saying with coaching, there's some hesitation in that. You're like, oh man, an extra expense. I got to pay for an office now,
Yep,
plus my house. But it's opened up the door for people to have a place to meet me, number one. Number two, it's also given athletes and people a safe space to come meet with me and talk with me openly without having to feel like they're in a coffee shop, or meeting with me virtually and they don't know what's happening behind me, vice
right.
versa. So, yeah, so like that connection with people is huge.
Yeah, yeah. We are winding down on time. Is there anything that you want people to know, people in general? Maybe something that you work with athletes that you think everybody can use for the last couple of minutes here?
Yeah, I mean, definitely check out my website at dorroncoaching.com. It's Dorron coaching.com. And you can learn more about me, check out testimonials, follow me on social media, and see what I could do to help you elevate your game.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. This has been a wonderful show, just getting to know you and letting people get to know who you are. So I thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you guys for watching, listening, wherever you're hearing this from. And I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.